All right, so are you getting ready for a senior buyer interview?
Ooh.
Well, you came to the right place.
Yeah.
We are diving into
Are.
an Indeed.com UK article today
Awesome.
that is just this gold mine of common senior buyer interview questions.
Yeah, they're really good.
And we're gonna dissect those questions, but we're also gonna arm you with the insights to really impress,
Yeah.
not just give those textbook answers.
Yeah. And you know what I think is so interesting about this article?
What's that?
Is that they don't just throw questions at you.
Right.
They highlight the core skills
Yeah.
that employers are really looking for in a senior buyer.
Yeah.
We're talking negotiation, judgment, supplier relationships, market knowledge.
It's a lot.
It's a demanding role.
It is a demanding role. Okay, so beyond just knowing the stuff,
Right.
how do we actually showcase these skills in an interview setting?
Right.
For example, negotiation.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's important, but the article's sample answer about being assertive but fair feels a little generic, right?
Definitely. Interviewers want to see you can walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Right.
So instead of just saying you're a good negotiator,
Uh-huh.
prepare specific examples.
Okay.
Let's say you had a vendor that was just stuck on their price.
Okay.
What levers did you pull?
Oh.
Did you highlight the long-term partnership potential? Did you offer creative payment terms? Did you leverage competitor analysis to your advantage?
Ooh, I like that. So it's about showing the HOW, not just the what.
Exactly.
I remember this one time I was negotiating this major software purchase, and the vendor was just firm on their price.
Yeah.
So I really dug deep. I researched their competitors. I even found some negative online reviews about their customer service.
Interesting. And
I carefully brought these points up, not in an attacking way,
yeah.
but to highlight the risk that they were taking by not being a bit more flexible. And it kind of subtly shifted the power dynamic, and we ended up getting a much better deal.
That's a perfect illustration of how thorough preparation can turn a seemingly rigid situation into a win.
Nice.
But it's also about understanding the psychology of negotiation.
Ooh.
Sometimes it's not just about the price tag, but about uncovering what the vendor values. Maybe it's brand exposure or a guaranteed volume commitment.
So for our listener who's prepping for this interview, it's worth brainstorming those beyond price levers that they could pull in different scenarios. Let's move on to a question that's all about problem solving. Can you describe a challenging purchasing issue you faced and how you resolved it?
Yep.
The sample answer talks about handling a supply shortage,
which is a classic senior buyer challenge. But think back to your career. What really put your problem-solving skills to the test?
Yeah.
Was a sudden price hike, a quality issue that threatened production,
Oh.
maybe even a natural disaster disrupting your supply chain.
Oh, and don't be afraid to talk about what went wrong initially.
Yeah.
Sometimes those almost failed stories
Really?
are the most insightful. What matters is how you adapted.
Yeah.
What lessons you learned.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where proactive risk management comes in.
Ooh.
Did your experience make you rethink how you vet suppliers?
Right.
Did you start building in more redundancies or buffer stock to your supply chain? Interviewers want to see that you can not only solve problems, but also prevent them from happening again.
It's like that saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Well, you get the idea.
Exactly.
All right, on to a question that dives into the nitty-gritty of deal analysis.
Okay.
How do you analyze the value of a deal?
All right.
The sample answer is solid, balancing quantitative and qualitative factors.
It's a good starting point, but let's take it a step further and introduce the concept of total cost of ownership, or TCO for short.
Ooh, I like it.
You see, sometimes focusing only on the initial price can be a trap.
Ooh, I've totally fallen into that trap before. Cheap phone case, cracked in a week. Tell me more about this TCO thing.
Okay, so TCO looks at the entire lifespan of a purchase.
Okay.
Think maintenance, potential repairs, even disposal costs down the line.
Oh, wow.
Maybe a slightly pricier supplier offers better warranties,
Okay.
or uses more sustainable materials that save money in the long run.
So it's like what seems like a bargain up front might actually cost you more over time.
Exactly.
Listeners, think about a time you made a purchase where you later realized, wow, I should factored in those hidden costs.
Yes.
Maybe it was a car with terrible fuel efficiency.
Yep.
Or a cheap appliance that constantly broke down.
Exactly. Senior buyers need to see the bigger picture.
Right.
They're making decisions that impact the company's budget for years, not just a one-time transaction.
Right, okay. All right, let's tackle one more crucial aspect of the senior buyer role.
Okay.
What is your approach to supplier relationship management?
Hmm.
Again, the sample answer about trust and communication is important.
Yes.
But how do we go from a basic answer to
Right.
one that really wows them?
It's about moving beyond transactions and into strategic partnerships.
Okay.
Think about the best vendor relationships you've had. Was it just about getting a good price,
hmm
or was there something more?
You know what? The best ones feel almost like collaborations.
Yeah.
There's this open dialogue, a willingness to problem solve together. I've even had vendors who, proactively alerted me to potential supply chain disruptions, saving us major headaches down the line. That kind of partnership is invaluable.
Precisely. So for our listener, it's worth reflecting on
Yeah.
what makes those great relationships tick.
Yeah.
Is it clear communication of expectations,
Uh-huh.
regularly scheduled performance reviews, maybe even socializing outside of work
Right.
to build rapport?
And you know what? Even the not-so-great vendor relationships hold lessons.
Oh, totally.
What could have been done differently?
Yeah.
Maybe more upfront communication about key performance indicators or setting firm boundaries early on.
Absolutely. Every experience, good or bad, helps you refine your approach to supplier management. It's all about continuous learning.
All right, before we move on to even more challenging questions, let's take a quick breather.
Welcome back. We're diving deeper into those tough senior buyer interview questions that really test your mettle.
Okay, you ready to tackle some more?
Oh, yeah.
All right, this next one is all about demonstrating your impact. How have you improved supply chain processes in your previous roles? Now, the sample answer mentions implementing a new inventory management system, which is great.
But we can make it even stronger. Remember, numbers speak volumes. Instead of just saying you improved efficiency, quantify it.
Yeah.
Did you reduce inventory costs by 10%? Shorten lead times by 2 weeks? Those concrete metrics make your accomplishments pop.
The power of data.
Right.
It's like anyone can say they're great,
Exactly.
but the numbers back up the story. Okay, this next question gets a bit personal.
Okay.
Can you describe a situation where you had to make a difficult decision as a senior buyer? The sample answer talks about switching suppliers despite a long-standing relationship.
Tough call. This question is all about judgment.
Right.
Interviewers want to see you can weigh the pros and cons, even when emotions are involved.
Yeah.
Did you have to cut ties with a vendor who was a friend?
Ooh.
Choose a less sustainable option due to budget constraints? Those are the kind of dilemmas that test your leadership.
It's about making those tough choices,
Yes.
even when there's no easy answer. And it's okay to acknowledge the human side of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you lose sleep over the decision?
Yeah.
Were there any ethical considerations? Showing that vulnerability can actually make you more relatable.
Absolutely. Authenticity goes a long way. Now, here's one we can all relate to.
Oh, yeah.
How do you deal with high pressure and stress?
Mm.
The article mentions organization and work-life balance.
Which are important, for sure.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own coping mechanisms. Personally, I'm a big believer in exercise.
Okay.
Even a 20-minute walk can totally reset my brain.
For me, it's mindfulness. Taking a few deep breaths before a tough negotiation can make all the difference.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also about having systems in place, prioritizing tasks effectively, knowing when to delegate, having a strong support network to lean on.
So it's not just about managing the stress in the moment,
Right.
but having those preventative measures too. Okay, let's shift gears to a question that's all about interpersonal skills.
Okay.
How do you handle disagreements with vendors? The sample answer emphasizes empathy,
Yeah.
which is key.
But remember, empathy doesn't equal being a pushover.
Right.
It's about understanding the vendor's perspective while firmly advocating for your company's needs.
Right.
Have you ever had to push back on a price increase that wasn't justified? Or negotiate a contract clause that was heavily in their favor?
Oh, those can be tricky conversations.
They can?
I think clear communication is key.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a simple misunderstanding that can be cleared up.
Uh-huh.
But if it's a genuine conflict of interest,
Yeah.
it's about finding that middle ground where both parties feel heard and respected.
And sometimes it's about knowing when to escalate. If you've exhausted all other options, it might be time to involve your manager or legal team.
Right. Get that backup. Okay, here's the question that often makes people squirm.
Okay.
What sets you apart from other senior buyer candidates?
Ooh.
The sample answer is fine, but it feels a bit safe.
This is your moment to shine.
Ooh.
Don't just list skills, tell a story. What's your unique value proposition?
Right.
Maybe you have a knack for spotting emerging market trends.
Wow.
Or you're a master negotiator who consistently secures below-market prices.
It's like, what's your superpower? And don't be afraid to toot your own horn a little.
Totally.
You've worked hard to get to this point in your career.
Exactly. Think about your personal brand.
Okay.
What are the 3 words that describe you as a professional?
Hmm.
Reliable, innovative, results-driven. Weave those qualities into your answer.
Ooh, I like that. It's not just about skills. It's about who you are as a professional. Now, let's switch gears and dive into some frequently asked questions about the senior buyer role itself. The first one is, what are some key skills for successful senior buyers? We've already touched on some, but the article specifically calls out project management, working under pressure, and understanding legal contracts.
It's highlighting the evolving nature of the role.
Right.
Senior buyers are increasingly involved in strategic decision-making, managing complex projects, and navigating legal and regulatory frameworks.
It's not just about purchasing anymore. It's
Right.
about being a leader,
Yeah.
strategist,
Yes.
a problem solver. So for someone transitioning from a buyer role, how do they develop those additional skills?
There are tons of great resources out there. Project management methodologies like Agile and Scrum are becoming increasingly popular in procurement. Consider taking a course or earning a certification to demonstrate your proficiency.
And don't underestimate the power of on-the-job learning.
Oh.
Volunteer for challenging projects, shadow senior colleagues, or even take on a mentorship role to guide junior buyers.
It's all about seeking out those growth opportunities and demonstrating your willingness to go above and beyond.
Okay, next question. How can I transition from a buyer to a senior buyer role? The article suggests enhancing skills, expanding industry knowledge, and taking on more responsibility.
That's spot on. But it's also about being strategic. What are the specific requirements of a senior buyer role in your industry? Are there certain certifications or qualifications that are highly valued? Tailor your development plan to those requirements.
It's like mapping out your career path. What are the stepping stones to get you from here to there? Okay, this next question gives us a peek behind the curtain. What does a typical day look like for a senior buyer? The article paints a picture of a fast-paced environment, juggling multiple stakeholders, reviewing purchase orders, negotiating contracts, resolving supply issues.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart. You need to be comfortable wearing multiple hats, switching gears quickly, and thriving in a dynamic environment.
Strong organizational skills are a must. And don't forget those soft skills: communication, collaboration, diplomacy. You'll be interacting with people at all levels of the organization, from suppliers to C-suite executives.
Now let's clarify a common point of confusion.
Okay.
What's the difference between a buyer and a senior buyer? The article highlights the increased complexity and strategic focus of the senior role.
It's a good distinction to make because it's not just about a fancy title.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental shift in responsibilities and expectations. A buyer might focus primarily on transactional tasks, while a senior buyer is thinking about the big picture, the long-term impact of their decisions.
Imagine like this. A buyer is like a skilled craftsperson,
Okay.
meticulously creating individual pieces. A senior buyer is like the architect, designing the entire structure and ensuring all the pieces fit together seamlessly.
I love that analogy. It really captures the strategic thinking and leadership involved in the senior buyer role. And with that, we're going to take a quick breather before we wrap up with the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned. All right, we're back for the final part of our senior buyer interview prep deep dive. We've covered a ton of ground, from those essential skills to those like nail-biting questions, but there's one more thing I think we really need to discuss, and that is like what happens after you land that dream job.
Right. The article doesn't just stop at the interview. It actually highlights potential career paths for senior buyers.
Okay.
We're talking about moving up to purchasing manager, director of purchasing, even chief procurement officer.
Wow.
CPO, that's the top dog in procurement.
So it's not even just a ladder, it's like a whole jungle gym
Yeah.
of possibilities. What are some of the factors that might influence which path someone takes?
Well, I think it often comes down to personal strengths and passions. Some people are natural leaders. They thrive on building and motivating teams. Others might be more drawn to specialization, becoming the go-to expert in a specific industry or category of goods.
It's like choosing your own adventure.
Exactly.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
The procurement world is changing fast. What are some of the emerging trends that aspiring senior buyers should really have on their radar?
One word: Technology.
Mm.
We're seeing a huge rise in automation, artificial intelligence, and data analytics in procurement. Senior buyers who can leverage these tools will have a serious edge.
So it's not just about knowing how to negotiate a contract, it's about knowing how to use data to make smarter purchasing decisions.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to stay ahead of the curve?
Embrace continuous learning.
Yeah.
There are tons of online courses, certifications, and industry events that can help you develop those in-demand tech skills. And don't be afraid to experiment, try out new software, play around with data visualization tools, get comfortable with the language of technology.
It's like, don't just be a passenger on the tech train, be the conductor. Okay, before we wrap up, let's just do a super quick recap of the key takeaways from this deep dive. We started by dissecting those core skills that employers crave: negotiation, judgment, supplier relationships, market knowledge.
We then tackled some of the toughest interview questions, providing insights and strategies to help you craft those compelling answers that really showcase your experience and potential.
Right, and then we also explored the evolving nature of the senior buyer role. It's not just about purchasing anymore, it's about being a leader, a strategist, a problem solver. And we talked about those exciting career paths that can unfold after you ace that interview.
So listener, what's the one thing you're going to take away from this deep dive and apply to your interview prep?
Yeah. For me, it's about going beyond the textbook answers. Don't just tell them you're a good negotiator. Give them a real-life example that demonstrates your skills. Don't just say you can handle stress, share your personal coping mechanisms and strategies.
And don't be afraid to let your personality shine through. Procurement doesn't have to be boring. Show them your passion, your enthusiasm, your unique perspective.
And we're so glad you joined us for this deep dive into the world of senior buyer interviews. Remember, you've got this. Go out there and knock their socks off. And hey, once you land that dream job, come back and tell us all about it. We can't wait to celebrate your success.